Hello, my name is Karline Moeller, and I am the founder of Art Frankly. Welcome to Frank Fridays. I would like to introduce to you my collaborator, Ellie Hayworth of Hayworth Consultancy. Hayworth is committed to promoting intrepid ideas in both art and design. Ellie has grown her business to command a full scope of client services, including public relations, content development, events, speaking engagements, business strategy, you name it, Ellie can help you. And today we are sitting down with Alejandro Jassan, who is the Associate Director of Press Relations at Lehmann Maupin, where he manages media relations, strategy, and outreach for all gallery and artist activities globally. Also an independent writer since 2012, Alejandro's reviews, essays, profiles, and interviews have appeared regularly in Elle Mexico, Elle Man, Elle Deco, Revista Quien, and The Wild magazine, among many others. He is also the co-founder of Gonzalez Hassan, an arts initiative that aims to bridge the visual arts between Mexico City and abroad. Ellie, over to you to get this Frank Friday started.
Amazing. Thank you, Carlina. And Alejandro, I'm very excited to chat with you today. It is really just such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like just during this pandemic time, I've been like connecting with you, both of you, and just being able to join Frank Fridays. I'm so excited. I'm so ready.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, we're really lucky to have you. So Alejandro, just to kick us off, when we last spoke with you for the Frank Talk, which is the interview component on Art Frankly's website, you were the communications director at Alexander Gray Associates, and you have since matriculated into a really exciting role as associate director of press relations at Lehmann Maupin. So maybe you can just kind of kick us off by telling us how the role has evolved for you, how your responsibilities have changed, and just, you know, how you've really kind of grown into this amazing role at Lehmann Maupin.
Of course. So I think the key word there that you mentioned was exciting. I think I was at Alexander Gray Associates for 6 years, and it was fantastic. I had a great time, fantastic artists that we were representing. But for me, one of the ideas was to get a little bit more of an ambitious role. So joining Lehmann Maupin, where we have over 5 galleries across the world, including London, Hong Kong, Seoul, and then these 2 pop-up shows that we've been having in Aspen and Palm Beach, on top of the New York galleries, plus 40 something artists that we represent, has just become, you know, for a communications person, for a PR person, I have now 40 something stories to tell, and over 5 spaces to be able to promote the shows, promote the initiatives, promote the art fairs. So in a way, just the role became a little bit more enhanced. And as you say, it's been very, very exciting.
I love to hear that. I have to tell you, I have been to, so I'm based in Miami, and I have been to your Palm Beach location. I have to say, I almost go, I would say, you know, very regularly. I was there last week. I think I may be back next week. So you guys we have a very warm and welcome market here in South Florida for Lehmann Maupin. So that's exciting as well.
I love to hear that. I was there myself over the winter break, and you know what, just seeing all of the artists that we represent somewhere else, like in the sun, in the beach, it was just another way to engage with them. It was very,
I love it. I love it. Well, maybe on that note, Alejandro, a great kind of segue here is, you know, it has obviously been a very volatile year. I think you guys have navigated it very gracefully, and I stay very closely apprised of Lehmann Maupin's activities. But, you know, either personally or professionally, how have you been staying connected with the arts community? How have you kind of stayed busy over these past few months that were a little volatile?
Yeah, well, I feel like when the pandemic started, we just were forced into our homes, forced into like not being able to see the world, to travel, to see all the shows and exciting things that we like from the art world. So personally, my way to keep this conversation going and to keep connected was through media. I think sometimes we just assume that it's there. It arrives on text, it arrives on our emails, it arrives on the door if it's a newspaper. But for me, really focusing on that and paying attention to all the voices, all the critics, all the writers, everyone who's really putting out a voice out there, was, at least for me, a way to keep connected and keep stay informed of what was happening in the world. So definitely that was a way. And then as we were saying, Zoom conversations, phone calls. Not being able to see my friends or my colleagues in person was tricky, but also it gave me a way to really stop for a second, have an honest conversation, have a real conversation. And even if it was a studio visit, it was just, let's talk about what's going on. Let's talk frankly. Let's talk honestly about what's happening in the world. And we were all under these circumstances that we didn't know what was going on. So for me, I was really relying on social media, really relying on Art News, ArtNet, Artsy.
Yeah, of course.
Frankly.
Yeah.
And all of those.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think as like a fellow communications professional, I think there is a big point to be made here about media, because so many were struggling, and there was a huge, I think, kind of rude awakening for a lot of individuals in the media space. So I think just to see that we were, continuing to support the organizations that we were supporting, and then being very thoughtful about either, re-envisioning the mandate or supporting organizations that were telling the right stories. I think there was this kind of moment to really revive the media. And it was because we were all in kind of a vacuum for a bit, and we were reliant on the writers to help us kind of stay connected. So I love that you said that.
Totally. And I feel like a lot of these writers were also presented with a challenge. Like you cannot review a show anymore. So what can we do with our words? What can we do with our texts? And I was really enjoying, I know a few of my favorite critics are Alex Greenberger. He shared a story about like figurative painting, which was such a big movement. And just reading that was, wow, another way to engage with what we could not see in person.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'm curious, Alejandro, from the perspective of your role at Lehmann Maupin, how did the strategy change, or what? I mean, you mentioned some of these satellite galleries that opened, but just at large, what were some of the different kind of principles that you guys started to embody, and how did you navigate this?
I think one of the most important things was to really listen to each other and really be able to act on our feet and really be flexible. For example, we opened our London space in October, and a few weeks later, it got shut down again. So all this effort, all this, not only from the gallery, but the artists, the press, the media, everybody had their eyes on London, and suddenly we closed down, and it's time to, okay, we need to pivot. We need to start thinking about what can we talk about? What can we keep promoting? Where can we now show these works? And that's where these places like Palm Beach and Aspen and all these different pop-up, we have a few coming up. I cannot share just yet, but we have some.
That's okay. That's exciting.
But this is what these places gave us, a new opportunity to show the work in a different environment, in a different setting. Sure. And for us, it meant that we just had to stay on our feet and really act as the challenges came to us.
Yeah. No, I think, and that's a perfect segue. One of the curiosities as I was kind of putting together today's program, you guys do have a very international roster. So a lot of the individuals we've spoken with, it's very domestic or it's very local. And you guys are dealing with a lot of different challenges because this was a pandemic. So it was global in scale. And there were also different kind of regulations contingent on that. So I'm curious just how did you guys navigate that? And how did you navigate a media strategy when I know, someone like Hong Kong, for instance, is a market that has a very different kind of media infrastructure than the United States. So I don't know, maybe just give us a little anecdote on how you guys were navigating that.
Of course. So I think we were just, I'm going to use the word invited, not to say forced, but we were invited to really put our efforts into the content that we were putting out there. Yeah. So before we would have a really honest conversation with a curator, with a critic, with a collector at the gallery in front of the work. Now it's like, how do we transfer this? How do we communicate this online? So we really revamped our video content, our online viewing rooms, our website, even our social media. I mean, we have a fantastic social media manager here in the team. And that's the way we've been really trying to say, okay, how are people going to read us from every single corner of the world? How do we now, instead of having one press release that goes out to a long list, how do we target each and every one of these people who are at home, who are feeling different feelings, who are living different experiences? How do we reach each one of them? So just a few examples. Like we did a fantastic online viewing with Dohosa, and his work, as you know, is very much about home. And he's home. It's like the key word, and just having him transfer these works, which are very impressive in person, and they're very tactile and not supposed to touch them,
and experiential,
but, like experiential, and you walk through them and you see people walking through them. So how do we transfer these things, particularly through our website? Similarly, we had a show with Teresita Fernandez, and her work is all about the material, and you have to see it. You have to see the charcoal. You have to see your reflection as you walk in front of it. So we, for example, for that one, we made a fantastic film where you can really feel like you were walking through the space. You could hear Teresita talking about the materials, and it really, not only it gave us the opportunity to connect with the audience, it gave us a completely new way to think about it, to think about how we show the artist, how people will engage with the art. And this applies to everyone, to collectors, to media, to curators, to the general audience.
Yeah, I love that. Early on, I was in my career, I was asked to participate in an article, and they were asking, what is one of the most kind of critical best practices that you can tell a gallery as part of their kind of PR mandate. And I always use the terminology, till the soil, like till the farm. And eventually, you'll appreciate this in Spanish, but la cosecha, like the fruits of your labor will come. And I think that's exactly right. The fact that you guys ramped up your content strategy in such a great way. I mean, truly, you were able to showcase the work that typically is on the ground, in the roots, in your farm, but you were able to actually distribute it. So I think that's amazing to hear all of the ways that you've done so.
Yeah, and it's been super exciting. And honestly, it takes a village, and we are a lot of great, passionate people working here. And I have colleagues that I haven't even met in person, but we all found a way to connect to each other and just talk about it and talk to each other and say, what do we find exciting about this work? How can we get the public excited about this?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love it.
I agree with you.
That's great. Alejandro, you do a lot beyond your work with Lehmann Maupin. And so I think maybe this is a great time to chat a little bit more. I mean, it seems to me like your mandate is always kind of making the international feel a little bit more intimate. And you contribute as an art critic with Elle Mexico. You've also done a number of interesting curatorial projects. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your work with Elle Mexico, among other, media outlets, and just, what shows you're choosing to see, why you're choosing to review them critically. Just give us a little insight into your kind of art critical practice.
Of course. I think critic is a strong word, so I'm going to keep it as contributed writer. But you know what? I used to be a designer for Elle Mexico back in the day. That's like over 10 years ago, before I even moved to New York. And back then, that's when I really found or discovered the real power of words. And that's where I knew that art is a very important thing, like seeing art in person, but also how we talk about it, how we learn about it, how we communicate about it. And that has always permeated in all of my different jobs, in my different endeavors, and all my different projects. But for me, writing found a very, very special place because it gave me the opportunity to work with artists that I had never even met or I didn't have access to. So thank God I had a great footing at Elle Mexico, and I just started honestly bringing ideas of artists that I was really passionate about. And I think the first big story I did with them was with a South Korean artist, Kwang.
Oh yeah,
and at
of course.
The time, yeah, I love his work. And at the time he was showing with Hashtag Cradler Gallery in Chelsea. And I just saw the work in person, and I knew I had to tell this story. And this is something that, for me at least, I thought it was new to Mexico. No one had seen this. No one had even talked about this type of body of work. And for me, writing is that escape, or like that door to open it to people to learn about other artists. And I've done some fantastic interviews. I've met fantastic people. I mean, the list is so long, but there's some fantastic artists like Jean-Baptiste Bernardet. I did a
Of course.
fantastic
I have a
interview.
Jean-Baptiste Bernardet right here.
Really? He's one of my
It's a
favorite
very,
artists.
very intimately sized canvas. It was an early work by him, but yeah, it's one of my favorites. It was my first acquisition.
Amazing. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
I did an interview with him, and he's a good friend of mine, of course. But
I love it.
but it's just a way for me to collaborate with artists, to talk about their work, to talk to them, to get to know them, and to even challenge them a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's amazing. And Alejandro, can you tell us a little bit about your curatorial projects or some of the other projects that you've taken on kind of independently from your role as, you know, as the press relations manager?
Of course. So if I wasn't already busy enough, I like to
Sure.
just fill my schedule to the
Yeah.
top. So every Monday or every Sunday or Monday, sometimes both, I'm always doing studio visits. For me,
Okay.
it's the best way to connect with artists, the best way to learn about an artist's practice, to see them in action, to see the work before it gets edited out, before it gets filtered and gone into the world. I meet with people, I discuss, again, frankly, with them about their work. And I just, it's important for me to not just as a curator, but also in general, like as an arts professional, you have to learn the more, like as much as you can.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I see artists and I see a lot of talent out there. I'm very passionate about emerging artists, and I've got a lot of surprises where I go to a studio and certain artists has never shown in the US. And I'm very proactive. So I say, how can we fix this? How can we find a space, or who's going to lend me an apartment?
Yes.
Whatever is possible. I'm very much of the idea that anything can be done. And if you do it with passion, it will come out beautifully. So I've done projects with different artists for Spring Break Art Show. I've also collaborated a couple of times with the Java project in Greenpoint. But I've also just rented out storefront and put on a show. I think as we were saying, and it ties very much with what you and I do, but the power of words, the power of communicating is stronger than anything. So even if you put on a show in the middle of literally nowhere, people will come and see it, and people are excited to see art, to engage with art. And some great friendships, some great relationships have come up from there.
I love that. I also, I mean, it's funny. It's like a lot of, you know, at least in my experience, you may put up a show and you'll have a really great reaction to the show, but nothing immediately comes of that show. But 5 years down the line, 3 years down the line, someone knocks back on your door and says like, oh, I became familiar with this artist at your show XYZ amount of years ago. And so you actually see, you know, it is a slow burn in the art world. I think we all need to be patient, and it's a day-to-day hustle. But I think it's very meaningful. And if you do it in, you know, with the right intentionality and you're exposing it to the right audiences, it's funny how in a few years or even in shorter time, you do see the benefits.
Totally. And I actually keep coming back to the same artist, not just because I see them evolving and growing and making new things that I'm equally excited as the older things. So
I agree.
I've done 2-3 things with different artists, and honestly, I keep going back for more.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think that's really incredible. Bueno, Alejandro, you do a lot. So this question probably comes easily, but what do you do to stay busy every day? Like, what is one thing that you do in your professional life every day that you think is, you know, critical to maintaining your momentum?
I think religiously, I have every time usually after lunch or in the morning with my coffee,
Sure.
I just open a new browser window and open every single magazine or every single online, whatever it is, Hyperallergic, Artnet News, Artsy, Art Frankly, New York Times, all of them, and just see what's happening in the world, what's happening in terms of gossip, in terms of news, in terms of new shows, in terms of new openings. Sometimes you see openings at different museums and different galleries, and you understand how the business keeps on changing, how it's evolving, how things are picking up or slowing down. So that's something I definitely do to, I guess, stay busy, but also to stay informed and to stay like up to date with things. But the other thing, as I was saying, is like studio visits. I do it at least once a week, and museum shows. At least like every weekend I go to one museum. It can be the Cloisters, it can be the new
Yep.
museum. I was at the Whitney last week, and then I'm going back this week.
I love it.
So I think that's, it is my passion. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's my passion. And yeah, when I have free time, I'm like, where can I see more art? How can I watch a documentary? I just saw the Agi Gond, and then I saw that Made You Look documentary about the Nodler scandal.
I haven't seen it yet, but everyone's talking about it, so that must be on my weekends to watch list.
You should watch it. And then there's of course Talk Art, the podcast with Russell Tovey and Robert Diamond. They did one recently with Mandy Elsay, who we represent, and they've done one with Catherine Opie and so many artists. I think they did one with Lubaina Himid. I don't know. I just Louis Fertino, Doron Langberg, who I adore. Yeah, just if I'm not hearing about art, I'm looking at art. If I'm not, I'm watching a movie, I'm talking to an artist. Honestly, it doesn't end, and I never want it to end.
I love it. I love it. No, I think it is definitely an industry that we need to love it, and it becomes a vocation as much as a profession. So I love that.
Totally. And sometimes I'm like, well, where can I see more, or what am I missing?
I get it. Yeah. I do. Alejandro, for any, young aspirational professionals coming into the industry, whether it's in communications or it's another part of the art world, are there any new best practices or any kind of words of advice that you would offer?
I do. I get asked sometimes that, like, what would you do if you wanted to start, let's say, in the communications? I'm always of the idea of go ask people, go knock on doors, go look out for opportunities. Honestly, I don't know if I should be saying this, but no one taught me how to do my job. No one taught me, and probably no one taught you to like how to do communications in the art world. Like or I mean, you do so many things. You do advising and like you do everything.
But so. you learn out by doing. And totally. I think it's like when you stub your toe 5 times, that 6th time, you're going to do it right, and you're going to do it right for the rest of your life.
Exactly. So. And that's my one and only advice, I think. Just ask around, and if you see something that excites you, ask for it. And that has led me to so many ways. I never thought of myself as a collector. But then the first time I found a piece that I was like really interested in, I talked to whoever was responsible, and I said, how can I get it? How can I bring it home? And that just developed a new branch of my life where it's like supporting artists and just engaging in a different way. So for young and old, I always say ask around, and people are willing to help. People are willing to help you, to teach you, to open doors for you. So just ask. And if not, ask me.
Yes, no, exactly. No, I think that is great. And tenacity, as well as just having a little bit of, courage is maybe not the right word, but just, ask for what you want. And I do believe, it's not quite manifestation, but I do believe that you kind of earn your luck.
Exactly. Totally.
I love that. Alejandro, we've been concluding our interviews by asking, we've obviously emerged from a very volatile year. It seems like we are hopefully in a place where we're moving into a bit more of at least the semblance of normalcy and a bit of a healthier world. But if you were to say that there was one positive takeaway, either professionally or personally, from last year, what do you want people to take away from 2020?
That's a tough one, but I think it's going to be communicating the right way. Like I'm not just saying professionally, but just being able to listen each other and listen to each other and really listen to what we are living, what we need in our friends, our family, our artists, our colleagues, or just a new friend that you made on Instagram. Yeah. Like, let's have that time to really connect deeply and connect sincerely. And that's how I survived 2020.
No, I agree. I think that's a very meaningful takeaway. So I think that is a great note to conclude on. This has been amazing. I think you were such a pleasure to speak with, and it's great to have like-minded colleagues in this industry. So it's very nice to officially chat with you today, Alejandro.